Hello everyone, my name is Chen. Today I'm going to talk about a recent news item. IKEA eyes India as key sourcing hub amid global trade shifts. This story illustrates how global value chains are being reshaped by geopolitical tensions and changing customer markets. In recent years, global trade wars and rising tariffs have pushed multinational companies to diversify their supply chains. For IKEA, this means looking beyond its traditional sourcing bases in China and other Asian countries. The company has been exporting textiles from India for nearly 5 decades, but now it is expanding sourcing into plastics, metals, and furniture. At the same time, IKEA is growing its retail footprint in India. It already has stores in Hyderabad, Mumbai, and Bengaluru, and just opened its first store in New Delhi. This shows that IKEA is thinking of India not only as a place to produce goods, but also a place to sell them. From a global value chain perspective, IKEA is repositioning India in two ways. First, India is becoming a key sourcing hub. IKEA has publicly set a target to raise its local sourcing share to 50% by 2030, and the company says it is currently on track to meet this goal. By widening local sourcing, IKEA reduces costs from India customers and strengthens its export base. It is also embeds India more deeply in IKEA's global production network. Second, India is also emerging as a consumption market. With a rapidly growing middle class and rising disposable incomes, India offers IKEA a large customer base. Local sourcing helps make products more affordable, which is critical for capturing this market. Now, let's dig a little bit deeper into what this move means. When a big company like IKEA works with suppliers in different countries, the relationship can take different forms. Sometimes suppliers are very independent, other times they have to follow the buyer's instructions closely. In India, many local firms are still moving from simpler products like textiles toward more complex ones like engineered furniture or metal parts. By expanding sourcing in India, IKEA is giving them a chance to upgrade, but at the same time, IKEA sets strict standards for price, quality, and sustainability. This means Indian suppliers may have less freedom because they need to fit IKEA's model. This raises a big question. Will India just remain a place for low cost production, or can Indian companies climb up the ladder, for example, by developing their own designs, brands, and innovations in the future? China's experience shows that such upgrading is possible, but it usually requires not just foreign buyers, but also strong government support, investment in skills, and local clusters where companies learn from each other. Another point is about learning and knowledge transfer. By joining IKEA's global network, Indian firms might gain new know-how. For example, a small furniture factory in India might learn advanced production techniques or sustainability practices by working with IKEA. But whether this happens depends on how closely they collaborate and whether Indian firms have the capacity to absorb these lessons. Finally, it is important to note the bigger picture. Europe is still IKEA's largest supply region, followed by Asia. Within Asia, however, we see a clear shift. Instead of relying too much on China alone, many companies, including IKEA, are adopting a strategy often called China Plus One. That means keeping part of their production in China, but also adding another country, such as India or Vietnam, to diversify risk. In this sense, India is not replacing Europe, but it is becoming an important addition to IKEA's Asian supply base, while also standing out as a fast-growing customer market in its own right. IKEA's expansion in India brings several opportunities. First, lower cost means more affordable prices for Indian customers. By sourcing locally instead of importing, IKEA can cut logistics and tariff expenses, which helps it reach the growing middle class. Second, supply chain diversification creates greater resilience. By not relying too heavily on one country, IKEA reduces its exposure to geopolitical tensions or disruptions like we saw during the pandemic. And third, This strategy encouraged industrial upgrading and job creation in India. As IKEA demands higher quality and sustainability standards, local suppliers can move up the value chain while also generating new employment opportunities in manufacturing and logistics. But there are also significant challenges. The most obvious one is US tariffs. With Indian exports facing duties as high as 50%, this makes India far less competitive than peers like Vietnam or Bangladesh when supplying the American market. Another issue is infrastructure bottlenecks and quality control risks. Roads, ports, and logistic networks in India are still developing, which can raise costs and delay shipments, while meeting IKEA's strict quality standards can be difficult for smaller suppliers. Finally, IKEA faces pressure around labor rights and environmental sustainability. As the company scales up sourcing in India, it must ensure that local practices align with global ESG commitments or risk reputational damage. In conclusion, IKEA's move highlights how multinational companies adapt their global value chains in response to trade tensions and shifting economic opportunities. By embedding India more deeply into its production network and targeting 50% local sourcing, IKEA creates both opportunities and challenges. The case illustrates that global value chains are not only about shifting production sites, they are also about the relationships between buyers and suppliers, the opportunities for upgrading, and the knowledge flows that determine who really capture value. For IKEA, the key question is whether India can become not only a major sourcing hub, but also one of its fastest growing customer markets. Thank you for listening.